All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of the Atlantic Strong podcast. I'm your host, Jordan Dickens, and tonight we have Dr. Tyler Desplenter, uh, who has a PhD and is the owner operator of Northern Warrior, which is a strongman and home gym equipment manufacturer in Ontario. And on top of that, Tyler and Northern Warrior are sponsoring our Axle Deadlift for Reps at New Brunswick Strongest Man and Woman 2021. And he's given us two of his axles, and the open man and open woman that get the most reps on the axle deadlift walk away from the competition with those axles. And people are pretty excited about it. So,
Nice.
Tyler, welcome. It's great to have you on.
Yeah, thanks, Jordan. I'm excited to chat some strongman with you today.
Yeah. And it's St. Patty's Day, and we've got another New Brunswick Strongest Man and Woman 2021 sponsor, Foghorn Brewery in Quispamsis, New Brunswick. Just get that in the cup. So, let's start at the start. How old are you? Where are you from? And when did you get into lifting weights?
I am 31 years old. Weights around near the end of high school, like age 17 or so.
Did you continue lifting through university?
In university, it's really where I started looking at competing in strongman. So yeah, that's where I fell in love with it.
So you do have an advanced degree. Where did you do your undergrad, and what was it in?
I did all my schooling at Western University in London, Ontario.
Right on.
I did my undergraduate degree in software engineering with embedded system specialization. And then I just stayed. I found a research program I liked and started a master's, switched to PhD, and kept rolling from there. Then I did finish my PhD in 2018 and did a postdoc for a while. And then, Northern Warrior was calling for me more and more. So that's what I'm doing now.
So, and we'll go back to when you started Strongman, but you started Northern Warrior while you were still working your, for lack of a better term, your day job. There was a time where you were doing both, right?
Yeah, so I started Northern Warrior officially in 2017. That's when I registered the business, but I had been working on the ideas before that, and then I've been building equipment for myself for a couple years, or a few years before that, even here and there. But yeah, basically for the last, since about 2017 or something, I've worked 7 days a week. During my PhD, I lost some funding, so I had to have a second job there on top of Northern Warrior. During my postdoc, same thing. So yeah, it's kind of nice just to do, one job. Although that's turned into 2 jobs worth of hours per week, anyways. But yeah, I really love it though, so it's pretty sweet.
Yeah, for those that don't know, when you're doing a master's and then a PhD program, in Canada at least, most of it is just research, right?
Yep.
So what happens?
So yeah, mine was research.
So for those listening that don't know, what happens is a person will get into a group or on their own, come up with a thing to research, and then petition for funding to do that research, and part of that funding is actually goes towards their living while they do the research. And so you lost the funding that was, putting food in your mouth, and that's when you started doing the Northern Warrior stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it all kind of came together. So first I did get a second job at a local machine shop here. But then by doing that metal work, I was just like, oh shit, like I could make my own equipment. I could make it better than I already do. And so it kept, so those ideas I had, it just kept them rolling. And then I was like, yeah, why don't I start it? Why don't I, try to sell one thing this year. And I wanted to, make stuff that was unique, and just kind of, sold a couple of things the first year, and then it snowballed to where it is today.
Right on. So were you into or interested in fabrication, machining, metal work before getting into university? Was that something that happened while you were there?
So I've been, both my grandfathers were carpenters. So I've been doing carpentry I'm 31, so maybe like 25 years or so, with those two. And so I'm building stuff. I used to frame houses and build cottages and stuff. So the woodwork skills have been there. But it wasn't until I started working at this machine shop that I saw it's like, oh, actually, metal's even easier to work with than wood, because in a lot of cases you make a mistake, you just weld it up, re-drill the hole, cut a piece out, weld a new one back on. So I was like, okay, yeah, I can do this.
Yeah, so there's here in New Brunswick, there's an equipped powerlifter in Moncton named Pat Stadler, who is his trade is he's a machinist, and he's been building, solely for his own use, but he's built his own like combo rack. He's built his own squat racks. He's milled his own barbells. He's 3D. He's got a 3D printer, so he's 3D printing things like dish racks and deadlift wedges. Having the access to the equipment and the ability to do that kind of stuff is really, really cool to see. Especially when he got into, he milled his own barbell and used a CNC machine to put the knurling on. That was pretty cool.
Yeah.
So let's go back to university. When did you start getting into strongman? Oh, you back?
Yep. Can you hear me?
Yep. For anybody that's just listening, we just lost connection for a couple seconds. So going back to university, when did you start getting into strongman?
So just going back a little bit before that. So I had like some family issues growing up. And then, so one grandfather really became like a role model for me. And I always used to hear tales of how strong he was, picking up these 400-pound objects and throwing kids over the fence out of his yard and stuff like that. So then in 2009, he passed away, and that was really hard on me. So I started burying myself in the weights more. And I was just like, fascinated by this getting stronger. And took me till about 2010, 11. There's a local contest run in Woodstock, Ontario here. And so I just went out 2 years in a row and watched it and saw like what the guys could do, saw all the different competitors. And, back then it was all open men and I think no women at that time. So I just started to look at what they did and make a couple implements for myself, because back then around here there was no strongman gyms that I knew of or any kind of equipment for me to use. So I just kind of just it like just watching these guys struggle and seeing how some of them had built themselves up from small people to big people. I was like, oh, I'm interested. I want to try that. So then in 2013, I went to that Woodstock contest and competed for the first time. And I've been doing it. I haven't missed a season since. I think I've done at least one contest every year since.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So what was your training like early on into strongman?
It was really so basically when I started it, I'd been training for about 4 years or so, pretty consistently, just going to the gym, doing my bench, squat, deadlifts, dumbbell work. And then when I got into strongman, I basically, the summer before I knew the contest was going on, I figured out what events would be happening. So there was a axle, clean and press for reps. There was a farmer's walk, a tire flip. I forget what else. So I made with the help of my uncle, we made some really, makeshift equipment, made an axle, made farmer's walk handles, which actually have worked till today, till recently I broke them. And I just trained in his backyard. I bought a barbell and dumbbells, and I really just hammered those exercises, which looking back wasn't maybe not the optimal thing to do, but I just trained whatever equipment I had all the time. And so I got like pretty good at those, deadlifts, axle, clean and press, and then I built a little Viking press machine.
So do you always train? How should I put this? Do you always train events throughout the whole year, or will you only train events leading up to a competition that you know the events?
Yeah, I know what you're saying. That's a good question. As a scientist, I'm always experimenting. So I've done it multiple ways, like where, I train my basics, like squat, deadlift, pressing, overhead and bench, and then just train the events as the contest comes up. And then I've also done it the complete opposite, where I train the events all year round. And I think at the start, maybe working more on that static strength is good. For one, there's like potentially a bit less risk of injury. And then it's easy for you to do. So you can do overhead benching and overhead pressing and benching, deadlifting and squatting in any gym. And you can just get generally prepared. But now that I'm, more, you're just not going to get good at the events without actually doing them. But there's a balance, because a lot of them are full body movements, so they're really taxing.
Yeah.
So you might be able to do, a bunch of more standard gym movements in a session. But if you try to do, like yoke, stones, farmers, log all in one session, it's like you're going to get that strongman flu that I hear you talk about.
Since I've got my own yoke and I use it more often, the yoke flu has gone away. And that the yoke flu might have been because when I did get a chance to use the yoke, it was generally I was working for a competition. So if I got a chance to use a yoke at somebody's place, I would hammer it. Like I would go heavy, I would do a lot of work because I knew I wasn't going to get a chance to touch it again before the competition. But now that I have my own and I can afford to use it more often, but uh, at a lower intensity, that's gone away. What I do think is real is things like stone sandbags. There's such a full body movement that even a moderate workout, a moderate stone workout or moderate sandbag workout will crush me for a couple days.
Mhm.
And it's just because it's everything right from your ankles to your neck is sore afterwards, especially with stones. From my ankles to my neck and my biceps and wrists are sore. And that might be, I've got a couple stones in the molds over in the other room, and maybe when they're done and I have access to them, they'll go away as well. But um, a lot of the strongman equipment is, yeah, it's like you say, it's mostly full body stuff. Even the things that you don't think of as a full body exercise, like a log press. If I do a lot of log cleans and presses, my ankles hurt more than my shoulders hurt.
Yeah.
And it's just, yeah, it just breaks your body down like regular barbell training doesn't seem to do. That being said, I think that specificity is maybe a little bit um, it's a little bit overdone. I think people get, especially when they've got an event coming up, they get a little bit caught up in, well, how high is the deadlift going to be? Well, I mean, if you have a good deadlift from the floor and you practice the 18-inch pull just a little bit, you're going to be all right. Like, don't worry about it so much. Don't stress yourself out thinking about that. Are we picking the log up off the floor? Is it going to be on tires? Like, just you can go overboard thinking about specificity too much.
Yeah,
Uh,
I would agree with that. And I'm actually writing a book about that right now. So I did some research on event data from Ontario contests over a 5-year period, and to try to figure out what is tested. And just there's so many variations that it's to your advantage to vary your training a lot. And just like you said, not worry specifics until it's, you know, maybe right before the contest and say it's a variation you haven't done in like a long time, then maybe, practice the technique of it. But what you're going to have is like, if you hammer the same exercise, it doesn't matter what it is all the time. At some point, you're going to go backwards, right? You're going to be overtrained in that specific movement pattern or activation pattern. But strongman lends itself well to varying the training, and I think that's kind of what makes it fun.
yeah,
And then just going back to what we said, it's like you could do 5 or 6 events in a training session. You just have to adjust the amount of volume you do. So like if you do a contest and every event you're doing is a max effort, whether it's actual max effort or repetition, you're done after one set. So if you want to do that every week in one training session, then maybe you only do one set, or maybe only 2 sets at a lighter percentage. So you can do it, but you got to be really mindful. And I think strongman has taught me the most about auto regulation and like really listening to the body
yeah,
and going for it when it's there, and then taking a step back when it's not.
yeah. I agree. I think with the advent of this loadable equipment, it's nice to be able to adjust the intensity and the volume on almost any given event, except for tires and things like that, because then you have to own a bunch of different tires. Um, but I mean, even when I first kind of got into strongman, this is 12 years ago, and I just trained a little bit with a guy who competed around here. His equipment was, his equipment was homemade. It wasn't loadable. Like his log was over 200. And we're back. Maybe. Can you hear me?
Okay.
So we had a little technical difficulty, lost connection again, but we were talking about auto regulation, and I mean, like, strongman teaches you auto regulation in the worst way possible. That if you don't do it, you will die. It will crush you. It'll
Yep.
ruin. It'll ruin a whole work week if you really let it.
Yeah.
You go do an event day, and I'm guilty of this. You go do an event day with your training group, and you hit it hard, and you hit a lot of events, and you have fun, and that Saturday and Monday morning you're just dead.
Yep.
You know, the whole I think people maybe geek out a little bit too much on auto regulation, RPE, reps and reserve, that kind of stuff. But I think when you get into training strongman events, you need to know when to pull back, when to cut the volume, when to cut the weight. um, I was talking to a training partner of mine about why I like strongman so much, is because you can, when you are getting beat up, you can change the variable, or you can change the variable that you're training and give yourself a break, but you're still getting better at the sport. So saying for farmers walks, for example, if my hands are getting beat up, my forearms are getting beat up, um, and I want to take a break, well, I can just cut the weight in half and work on speed, and I'm saving my body, but I'm working on another thing that counts in a competition, which is how fast can you move your feet. So even on these deload weeks or these down weeks, you're still feels like you're progressing in the sport. Unlike powerlifting, where you take a deload week and you're not lifting as much, and it kind of sucks because the whole point is to lift as much as you can. Well, with strongman, I just drop back and go, okay, well, I'll work on viper presses, because if I come up to a competition where it's a lightweight, then if I'm good at viper presses, I'm going to get a lot of presses in a short amount of time. And I've dropped my intensity by 50%, but I'm still getting better. I'm still having fun too.
Yeah, I think so. I think that you could probably apply that principle to any training program, but I think like strongman just lends itself. So like, for example, like, well, I mean, what people do for deload weeks is speed work or dynamic work. And although it's not a tested component in, say, powerlifting, we have the advantage that it is. You know, it's not for example, like carrying events, it's how fast you can move it, not the heaviest typically,
Yeah.
right? So yeah, I think you're right. Um, that is a nice thing. Like what I even farmers sometimes what I do is I do the same thing, or I just use straps. Right, just take the grip out of it if that's the thing that's holding me back, and keep working the pieces as you can.
Yeah, because you can still work the pick and work the transition from the pick to the walk and how fast you're moving your feet
Yeah,
and give your hands a break. I think that another thing that strongman has really taught me is that uh, hand fatigue is really a thing that needs to be monitored. Everything we do um, works the grip and works your hands. Um, I'm lucky enough now that I'm not on the tools. I'm kind of in an office job, but you know, crushing your hands, your grip strength every other day doing these events, that could really drag down your workday if you let it. And I've figured out now that that's a thing that I have to measure and monitor. I have to go, okay, did I use straps for my deadlifts yesterday or not? Because that's going to change whether I use straps on farmers tomorrow or I, use straps on frame or if I do grip work or not. Because when I was doing just powerlifting, that wasn't even a thing I really thought about because I would just, deadlifts for volume, in a training week were pretty low, a low percentage of the volume over a training week. So it wasn't even a thing to think about. But now when you go, okay, well, I'm doing farmers and I'm doing frame, I'm doing deadlifts, the log clean and press it takes a lot out of your grip. Doing sandbags takes a lot out of your grip. So here's another thing that I have to not worry about, but another thing I have to think about.
yeah, no, I think I know that all too well. So like grip has traditionally been one of my worst aspects. I have like very short and thick hands, and I actually found the opposite. I've had like I've been on computers all my life, um, or most of it till recently, especially for my job. And that computer work, that internally rotated flexed spine and neck position, actually has like damaged some of the nerves, and I'm really working now to try to open it back up. So I am really sensitive about how much grip work I do, and especially now that I build equipment full time, it's even more at the forefront of my mind. Just kind of like yourself, where you're like, I have to think like, what did I do at work today? Um, Sometimes I even use a test. I just squeeze my fist as hard as I can, and get the feedback from that. And if it you learn that feeling when it feels good, then okay, we're doing farmers today. But if it doesn't, well, maybe I got to do some lighter grip work, or maybe I need to rest. Maybe I need to use straps. Um, but yeah, grip's a huge part of strongman, and so for me, it's actually been very hard and miserable because it's been one of my weak points, right? So yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I'm working on it more now than I ever have been. Um, I never had to worry about it with doing just powerlifting. I never dropped a deadlift in competition because of grip. But now doing things like farmers and frame uh, and the stone and sandbag, I work on it more. Um, I focus on it specifically a couple times a week, but other than that, I'll let my regular training kind of work it. I tend to do farmers at least once a week, even just to even just light for fast runs, just to get a sweat on to warm up.
Yeah.
So, what was the first piece of equipment that you fabricated and sold as Northern Warrior?
Oh, that's a really good question. Um, wow. I want to say, I think one of the first pieces was an axle. I think, cause yeah, I'm pretty sure it was an axle. And I think though, one of the I made some pretty crazy stuff at the start. Like, for example, if you go back in my social media post, I made a timber chalk bowl. That was one of the first ones I ever sold. And it was an axle, chalk bowl, and a small log. I think those are the first three things I sold.
Right on.
Like one of my wooden logs. Yeah.
So talking about the wooden log, Prime Strength in Dartmouth, they bought one of your wooden logs.
Yep.
And me and Dylan Fraser have been talking about it, and I didn't get a chance to use it when I was down there, but I saw it. How much time, start to finish, does building a 12-inch diameter wooden log take?
It's about, I mean, I get better at like 16 to 20 hours of labor, something like that. It's a lot of work to do one of those wooden logs.
Are you, when you source the lumber for that, is that coming to you? Is that coming to you dried, or do you get a log and you've got to stick it out back for a year or two and then pull it out to work on it?
Yeah, it comes to me wet. So I
Okay.
go pick it up from a lumber mill, or whatever. I've had friends cut trees down and give me sections. So yeah, usually it's not fresh cut stuff. It's been sitting in the mill for a little bit, but yeah, it's by no means dry. So I gotta, bring it home. I actually set up a part of my shop just to kind of have the logs inside drying. So it's a bit quicker for sure. And you don't want to dry them like super fast unless they're pressurized, like they dry slab wood like that, because it'll crack really fast. So it's like this, you bring it home and wait, check it, and yeah, so they got to dry for a bit. So that's the thing. It's like I can't get a log and just start working on it.
Yeah.
So people contact me for logs, and it's like, yeah, so what do you think? Get it to me in a month, and it's like, it's got to dry for a month probably, So
Yeah, and it's not exactly a thing you can sit on a bunch of, drying logs in your shop, taking up space in hopes that you'll sell them.
yeah,
I watch a lot of strawman on YouTube, and you even see Graham Hicks and the Stoltman brothers talking about how their logs aren't even coming to them fully dry.
yeah,
That they'll get them and they'll weigh 150 kilos the day they get it, but 6 months later it'll weigh 145 kilos.
yeah,
And the logs too. I mean, wood is a natural thing. It's not a manufactured thing. You're not going to get, not every inch of diameter of that log weighs the same.
yeah,
So I was watching Graham Hicks got this wooden log, and it's actually a kilo heavy on one end. And so he keeps a kilo plate on the other end all the time.
right.
It's just those variables that you have to think about with the wooden log. But I think if I had the opportunity to get one, I wouldn't trade having to check the weight every once in a while, or keep a kilo plate on one end for a steel log. Although I've got a steel log and it works great, and it's, shout out to Danny Sutherland again.
Yeah,
He's doing great stuff, and he's doing good stuff in Picto for the sport by manufacturing equipment. But someday I'd love to get a real wooden log.
yeah. There's something primal about it, just throwing a tree over your head. I make steel logs too, but yeah, personally, like log press is my favorite event. So there's nothing like having a wooden log. Like my logs, they also shrink in weight as well. So it's like see what happens is you go to make a wooden log, you got to let it dry enough so you can work it, and so it's close to the customer's desired weight. But if you let it dry too long, it starts to crack.
Yeah.
And so basically, you kind of have to work it while it's semi-dried and seal it, and then hopefully, if you keep applying sealer over the years, it'll stay roughly that weight. But the first log I ever made for myself, I still use every week to log press, and it settled after some time.
Yeah.
So it takes a while, but that's just kind of how it is with manufacturing them. You got to get the logs right in that sweet spot so they crack the least.
Yeah.
And for anyone who hasn't used a wooden log, they all crack. Just so you know, it's wood. It dries out slowly, and I mean, you're beating the fuck out of it. So
Yeah, exactly.
yeah.
So Northern Warrior right now, what are you manufacturing on a regular basis?
Um, so I do have a bunch of stuff that's more regular, but honestly, I've been super flexible. I really take the approach that, like, tell me what you want and I'll make it as much as I can, and the only projects I've turned down so far are barbells, but I am working on those. So yeah, I want people to have custom strength equipment. Maybe you want a circus dumbbell that's longer, has a longer bell on it, or a thicker handle, or maybe you want logs that are odd sizes, like 13-inch diameter or something. So that's actually the approach I've taken. And so it's kind of like, you tell me what you want and I'll make it. So you see, I don't know if you saw like my crazy power rack monolift combo. I've made all kinds of equipment I never, dreamed of when I started this thing. But some of the more regular stuff would be some of the more common events you'd see. So like axles, make a lot of those, logs, steel, and wood. What else? My Archangel Bar. People have been liking that. Extra range of motion. You got the angled handles on it. It's really nice for pressing. Yeah, and then lately has been my Heathen Yoke. I don't know if you saw that.
I wanted to talk about that.
Yeah.
That is truly impressive what you've built there. So if you're listening, go to northernwarrior.ca,
Northern Warrior Strong.
northernwarriorstrong.ca, or go to Northern Warrior Strong on Instagram and look at what Tyler's built. So it is a squat rack.
Yep.
That converts into a yoke, that converts into a pair of farmer's handles, that converts into a frame. And if you put it back up to the squat stand, it can house a stone platform.
Yep.
So you get 4 things for the price of one. Rogue has been doing that with their monster yoke, that you can use it as a squat rack. But to have a squat rack, yoke, farmer's handles, frame, and a stone platform all in one, with the direction that things have been going with the pandemic, and more people, or so many people that are getting into having their own home gym, that steel prices are sky high and you can't get a barbell in North America right now, to be able to buy 4 things for that one price and have that one piece of equipment in your gym that can basically do pretty much everything you want in strongman. All you need after that is a log and the actual stone, and you can compete, or train to compete in pretty much every local or mid-level event.
Yeah.
Is fantastic, and kudos to you, because that is a really nice piece of equipment.
Yeah, thank you. That's my whole thought, is like, how can I package as much as you need into one kind of piece of equipment, and save people money? Because I actually yesterday was thinking about this, but if you bought even cheap versions of all those pieces, you'd still be paying like probably $2 to $3 grand.
Yeah.
And so that, that whole set is $1,570. So you're potentially saving thousands of dollars. You buy that and you buy a log and an axle and some plates, and you can pretty much, like you said, do whatever you need to
You could
to
do it
be
all.
competitive. I even
Um,
have designs to add some things to that, like a throwing attachment, on top of the
oh
yoke.
yeah, look way
Yeah,
up. That'd be perfect.
yeah, man.
You make plates.
Right now, I don't make them in house, but yeah, where I used to work, um, I got together with them at the start of COVID and was like, look, man, there's no plates. And China's distribution is shut down. So no one has access. So I was like, all right, let's do plates, but let's do them high quality. They're solid steel machined to like the IPF dimensions. Yeah, so yeah, they're really nice plates. And then just like with everything else, you can customize them. You can put
Yeah.
custom engraved, put your name in it, different colors, different lettering color. Yeah, so I wanted to do plates for a long time, but I waited, and I'm glad I waited till the moment hit when it's like, yeah, let's do this, but let's go the high quality route.
Well, and I think that through the pandemic, um, the companies putting out the higher quality equipment are the ones that have really reaped the benefits of this. I mean, even if you look at a company like Squat Racks Canada, that
Yep.
kind of came out of nowhere at the start of the pandemic. They were making squat racks. That was it. They had
Yep.
a squat rack. You get it either black or red. You get it 72 inches or 84 inches. You get it black or red. Well, 6 months later, they've got full power racks, squat stands, benches, their own plates, everything. Like the companies that dug in and sourced materials and put out good stuff are the ones that are going to still be here when this is all over.
Yep.
And I think that shift to more local, higher quality stuff. You know, obviously COVID's been terrible, and not being able to get cheap Chinese goods is the least of the worries compared to people that are dying.
Yeah.
But the silver lining is this focus back to local, even within Canada, high quality goods.
Yep.
I work in the marine industry, and I had the opportunity about 9 years ago to work on a barge replacing anchor chains uh, for a monobuoy here in St. John. That's where crude oil tankers come, and they're able to stay offshore where the water's still deep and pump oil to shore at this floating system, right? And it's got anchor chains.
Yep.
So the anchor chains were quote unquote up for replacement. Well, when they were installed in the 60s, they were made of steel from Finland, which at the time was the best steel producing country in the world, and they had the best chain and they had the best workmanship and everything.
Yep.
Well, the chain that it was being replaced with was Chinese chain, which was the only place you could basically get it now because they flooded the market with cheap steel and they pushed these countries like Finland right out. The 50-year-old chain that came out of the water looked better than the brand new chain that was sitting on the barge to go into service.
Interesting.
No word of a lie. Finnish chain from Finland that had been in the water for 50 years looked better than the Chinese stuff.
Wow.
And when I'm looking at things like Northern Warrior plates, when I'm looking at things like Rogue barbells, which are made in the US, I'll always remember watching that chain come up over the barge, shiny and new, in seawater for 50 years, and then the Chinese chain piled on the barge was rusting
Yep.
already, not even in service, was rusting. So, this new focus that most people have to local higher quality stuff, hopefully it hopefully it stays that way even after COVID is gone, because guys like you reap the benefits of working harder and spending more on materials to put out a nicer product.
Yep. I think I was hoping with this pandemic that would happen. Like we would, in general, as a nation, turn our focus to locally manufactured goods. But it maybe it's happened a little bit, but not, I think, to a large extent once shipping lanes open back up. But I still want to fight that fight. So it's like I'm still choosing to have everything sourced locally, even though it costs more, because I want to instill that value in the community. I want people to, I would love more manufacturing jobs to be brought back here.
Well,
And
yeah, I mean, people from outside of Ontario might not know that that steel belt of the US went right up through Ontario into all those places like Hamilton,
yeah,
that were huge manufacturing hubs. Hamilton, Scarborough, St. Catharines, huge manufacturing hubs, farm equipment, vehicles, international trucks and tractors, and all, they were made in they were made in Scarborough. Uh, textile plants. I have a friend that I went to university with. His family owned textile plants in Winnipeg that are probably shut down now. But yeah, hopefully throughout this pandemic, this inward focus into buying local, keeping it local, using higher quality, locally made materials. Hopefully that sticks around even just a little bit,
yeah,
because even if 10% of people now only buy certain things from within Canada, well, it's better than the zero that was
yeah,
before. It wasn't
that's
zero,
right.
but any improvement is good.
Yeah, well, I think going back to what you're saying about companies popping up during COVID, like I've been doing this for a few years, and then as soon as the pandemic shutdown started, it was like every machine shop saw a golden opportunity
Yeah,
to just switch, into manufacturing some kind of strength equipment, whether it's just the basics or more than that. But I think what you'll just see is like they're not like people like me who have a passion for it. So when the money's gone, they're going to go back to making truck parts or
yeah,
whatever they used to do, right? So yeah, I think that there's like a flood of companies right now, but I think just the ones like myself at some point will be left.
yeah, and hopefully, hopefully when that fallout happens, um, it's a good thing for guys like you, companies like yours. Hopefully, that person that would have bought from XYZ manufacturing calls them and say, "Oh no, we're back to making catalytic converters or whatever the fuck it is,"
Yeah,
and they go, "Okay, well, where else in Ontario could I get what I want?" And they go down the list and go, "Northern Warrior, I'll give him a call."
yeah.
Um, so your setup right now, is it just you?
Um, Last month, I hired my cousin part time to help me, so that's my first employee. And yeah, so but other than that, it's just me. My wife helps me with the like graphic designs and stuff, the branding. She's really good at that. So
Yeah.
she's on maternity leave right now, so luckily I have her help. Because but yeah, other than that, it's just me, man. It's like 100 hours for just me every week. Yeah, but it's good, man. I love this. I love
Yeah.
when people get their equipment, I see them use it to have those like really cool moments where you hit those PRs and smash your goals. Like, yeah, it's all worth it, man.
Yeah, I've been watching there's been some good videos of some big numbers coming from guys that really want that Northern Warrior Axle barbell after New Brunswick's Strongest Man.
Nice.
The last one I saw, shout out to Shane Gallant from Moncton, who I've competed with a couple times. Really strong guy, great competitor. He just put up 550 for 8 on an axle dead stop, and the competition is going to be 585 max reps. So we should see something
Nice.
big from him.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, people are really excited. That was when I announced that you were going to give us 2 axles to be the title sponsor of the deadlift event. That kind of got people perked up about competing again, and it filled the open men's class. We have it capped at eight lifters per class because of COVID,
Yeah.
and open men, for only New Brunswickers, open men filled the first, which is crazy. And looking at the list of guys, it's going to be pretty impressive. We're going to see some 10, 12, 14 reps with 585 on the deadlift. We might see, low 400 log press,
Cool.
which would be pretty cool.
Yeah.
So, shout out to Fundy Powerlifting Club, who's affiliated with the CrossFit gym that we're going to do the competition. Their members donated the money for the shipping of your axles to me.
Right.
So shout
Well,
out to
cheers to
them.
them, buddy.
Yeah, cheers to Fundy Powerlifting. Cheers to Northern Warrior. We'll switch gears a little bit to finish the podcast.
Sure.
You're training right now. Watched a couple videos earlier, some rack pulls with bands. Do you use bands and chains a lot in your training?
I don't typically use chains, and I just never had any or cared to go to the hardware store to get some. The only one I use chains usually only on bench press.
Yeah.
And as a strong man, I don't really bench too much. So yeah, I like the chains on there for bench. But bands I use quite frequently. So like you saw rack pulls with bands, that's a variation I like. I use bands sometimes with pressing, like out of the rack axles or barbells. Yeah, those are the 2 big ones. Sometimes squats I use bands with. Yeah, I like it. Just that, it teaches you that compensatory acceleration where you got to always accelerate through the band. And I really like that feeling on my body. I like having to fight being stapled to the floor, with that extra tension. Yeah.
Yeah, people that have never deadlifted with a lot of band tension, they might really they don't understand that it's a different feeling of the weight in your hands. Um, where the bar in your hands with the weight feels kind of like a passive pulling of gravity on you.
Yeah.
That when you use heavy band tension, it feels like somebody's is reaching up and trying to pull the bar out of your hands. So when you get into what I like it for is when you get into the 4th or 5th event of a strongman competition and you've got a deadlift for reps and you're tired, that the feeling is almost the same when you get into that state of fatigue, that it's like somebody trying to pull the bar out of your hands. And
Yeah.
if you train with heavy band tension, you kind of mimic that feeling of going into the event with this added stress of being dead tired, and having to really consciously explode through the whole movement.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I see what you mean. I've never thought about it like that, but it makes sense. One thing I like using bands for, especially on deadlifts, is because I've had major lower back injuries. The bands let me to try a new maximum weight at the top, and it's kind of like a mental barrier breaker for me.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's 700 pounds at the top. I've never, deadlifted 700 pounds from the floor. So it's kind of like, oh, okay, like, well, I can do it at least part of the motion. And so that's where I really like it. So those 2 things, like learning to accelerate and then breaking that mental kind of barrier, you know.
Yeah, no, I know exactly what you mean. That's why I will do rack pulls once in a while, for that same reason
Right.
of being able to feel, to feel 700 at the top, even though I know I can't do it from the floor.
Yep.
Actually, I'm gonna probably put heavy band tension back into my deadlifts for the next few weeks because I find I'm lifting real slow right now for some reason.
Okay. Yeah.
Maybe adding the bands will kind of give me that jolt of having to focus on accelerating at the top.
Yeah. You'll have
So
no choice, right?
yeah, you just won't get the lift.
Yeah.
So how's your training laid out right now?
So I had some injuries from provincials last year. I like partially tore my bicep a month before and during the contest. So I switched things up, but basically I train 3 days a week because I, have such a demanding schedule that, and I've been a natural athlete my whole life, my whole career. So I just, as these weights have gotten heavier, I don't have the recoverability with my asthma to train 4 days and 5 days a week like I used to.
Yeah.
So I basically train 3 days a week, and now when it's more off season stuff, I basically have like a deadlift day, a pressing day, and like more strongman event style day. Um, and so I'll usually do some kind of like some main movement or two. For like deadlifts, I'll do like a deadlift, and then I might do a variation, or I might front squat or something. Then it's like just accessories after that, weakness training basically. So like for me, that's lower back and hip flexors. So lots of that kind of work, reverse hypers and stuff. And pressing is the same kind of. I try to do when I'm getting feeling good again, which I'm not exactly right now. It's like two strongman style events, or two heavy compound events, and then accessories, and I do that 3 days a week. Then when we get into competition season, it's like I try to do more events per session, just less volume of each. And I haven't done it lately, but I've had good luck in the past. That like traditional strongman Saturday kind of training. So you train more like a power lifter during the week, more static events. Then you do your strongman Saturday or Sunday. I haven't done it lately, but I think it bodes well, especially for new athletes, because you almost get used to doing, if you do 4 or 5 events, it's like you're doing a competition every weekend.
Yeah.
And kind of, or at least preparing your body for that kind of demand, like a 3-4 hour session, 4 or 5 events. I would actually like to get back to that, but just I have to work usually all Saturday and Sunday, so I don't have the time for it right now. But yeah, that's basically how it's laid out now.
Yeah, I really enjoy doing a strongman Saturday or a strongman Sunday. Haven't really been able to do them because of COVID, and in New Brunswick right now you can only have like 15 people in your bubble.
Yep.
But because I've got a family of 4, that 15 people is shared across the whole bubble. So instead
Right.
of instead of doing strongman Saturday with 3 or 4 guys and taking up those numbers and really taking those numbers away from what my family could get, I've been doing my events. I'll do one event usually each day I train. So if it was a squat day, I would do squats and then yoke or farmers.
Yep.
And if it's a deadlift day, I'll do front carries, so sandbag carries or keg carries or whatever. And then
Yep.
on my pressing days, my main pressing movements have been either axle or log. I haven't been doing any barbell pressing really. So I'm doing an event every day I train
Yep.
in lieu of doing that strongman Saturday. But hopefully, as things improve with vaccinations and everything, I'll be able to get back to doing that because actually I train with a pretty large group and well equipped. Between 3 or 4 of us, I have a lot of equipment,
Yep.
so they've been going hard. All the guys in my training group that don't have kids or anything have been going hard every Sunday morning. And I've been missing out. I've been really missing it. Hopefully we can get back to it soon.
Yeah, that, like we were saying before, I think I had an easier time recovering when I do strongman Saturdays, because you kind of load up all of that muscle breakdown into one day. And then, if you're just standing in one spot deadlifting, it's not nearly as hard, unless you're going crazy as
Yeah.
that one day, right? But now when I'm doing like yourself, where I'm doing events every session, that's where I really have to watch. And I find for myself, it's really tied into my asthma. So if I can't breathe one day, I kind of just take it off now. But
Yeah.
yeah, no, yeah, that's good. I really like the. I've been doing this for a while. I don't know if you've seen my big timber super yoke that I use. So that thing's 515 pounds empty. So I always have to squat before I yoke walk, just as a warm up. So I don't know. Have you said you do that combination, right? Squat and
Yeah.
yoke. Yeah. How do you find that? I really like it personally.
I love it. I feel like by the time I get to the yoke, I'm primed. And I don't see myself doing any powerlifting competitions this year.
Yep.
Seriously, if I do them, it'll be just to do something. So
Yep.
it's like my only reason to squat right now is to get better at yoke.
Right.
So I'm doing high bar squats, and then I go into yoke, and I find that I'm primed. I'm ready to go. I'm going. I'm warming up 2 plates at a time on the yoke, just as a token, because I've got to drag them over there anyways.
Right.
But I could do my high bar squats and then jump right into 500 on the yoke, no problem. And yeah, I find that doing that, my yoke walks have been way better than doing just yoke at the start. Even with a lot of warm ups, uh, squatting first is way better for me.
Yeah, it's funny. I found the same thing when I started doing both. It's like it's almost like you said, maybe we don't always have a reason to squat because it's a very uncommon tested event, but you still need to do it to build that leg power. So I found the exact same thing. Like when I squatted before yoke, now my yoke numbers are going way up, and it gets the squats, and you just get in, treat the squats almost like a warm up, work up 400 or 500 pounds, and then just get right to yoke. So yeah, maybe that's something for all your listeners to try if they're wondering where to fit those squats in.
Well, I think I'm beginning to think now at 31 that I was really not warming up properly for the past 15 years of lifting. Like
Yep.
maybe I shouldn't just be jumping into a movement with doing bar, 1 plate, 2 plate, 3 plate, 4 plate. Maybe I should hop on the treadmill for 5-10 minutes and get warm, like physically warm, and then get going and do more sets and be more prepared, because by the time I work up to 500 on squats for some sets and then go to the yoke, I'm I'm warmed up but I'm not tired and I'm ready to go, and then the yoke just flies. So it's
Yep.
like, man, have I been really fucking doing this wrong this whole time and not taking 15 minutes at the start of my workout to actually warm up?
Yeah.
Like I'll do deadlifts, and then I'll do, so what I'm doing right now, because I've got an event in May that's got a kind of mystery carry event, which is going to be a bunch of different implements. I've been doing a lot of sandbag carries, so I'll do deadlifts and then I'll do the sandbag carries, but those sandbags come off the floor real easy because my lower back hamstrings are already warm and ready to go.
Right.
And it's the same thing. Have I been doing this all wrong by
Right.
just showing up, putting the bar on the floor, bar, 1 plate, 2 plate, 3 plate, 4 plate, and then do my working sets? Because by the time I get that sandbag, it's same as the squats and the yoke. I'm warmed up, but I'm not tired, and
Yeah.
I'm primed up.
Right. I don't. I Yeah. I mean, I feel the same way, but I don't think it's that you were doing it wrong all along. It's just that for the weights you used to do, then that warm up worked fine.
Yeah.
But now for the weights you want to do now, it's not good enough. I take an approach. I learned this a while ago from like Matt Wenning. You know who that guy is?
Yeah. So, he does a ridiculous amount of warm-ups in the
Yeah,
way of like, so he'll do 4 sets of 25
right.
on a tricep exercise before he bench presses.
Yeah. So
You
I
know,
don't take it to that extreme. But I basically do the same thing. So like I have these like whatever my weakness is usually, or whatever the movement I'm doing, I'll just do a couple sets of that, like say weakness or accessory training beforehand, and it's enough warm up if you're actually putting effort into it,
yeah,
to get you going. And then the other benefit it has is if at the end you just feel like shit or you're too tired, at least you got your weaknesses trained.
yeah,
You at least put a couple sets in every session, right? So yeah, I really like that front loading a little bit of your accessory work. And I mean, if it's really accessory work or weakness training, like it's not going to tire you out for the
yeah,
main work you got to do, right? And I actually find it's beneficial for strongmen because you know you got a bunch of events to do in a contest, but after a couple you're tired as fuck. So if you're always training in a somewhat semi-fatigued state, it's not such a bad thing.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I saw the video of the actor Ethan Suplee. He was doing leg training with Dr. Mike Israetel, and they started off by doing their sets of leg curls. They said, "So why are you doing leg curls first?" And Mike Israetel said, "Listen, by the time we're done leg presses and squats, nobody's going to want to do leg curls, and they're just not going to
Right.
do them. But
Yeah.
if we do them first, they're not going to affect the rest of the workout, but they'll be done."
Yeah.
And that's like I'm starting to get into that now, where it's like, hey, you know, if I do good mornings before deadlifts, it's not going to tire me out. It's actually going to make my deadlifts better because my
Yeah.
back and my glutes and my hamstrings are going to be warmed up. But after deadlifts, if I beat the fuck up, I'm just going to leave. I'm not going to do the good mornings. I'm not going to do the stiff legs. I'm not going to do the leg curls. So if
Yeah.
I do them first, they're actually making me better for deadlifts, and I actually do them
Right.
because I'm like anybody else. I'll jet before doing accessories all the time. It's
Yeah.
only hurting me in the long run. But if I do them first, they take 10 minutes, they warm you up for your main movements, and you get them done.
Yeah, exactly. Like if you're um it's not gonna it's not gonna hurt you to do them. And then it's if you there's I'm the same way. Like, well, just like we were talking before, if you do really heavy strongman workout, you probably don't need to do accessories, but even if you think you still need to do it, so a lot of times you're not going to be able to do them.
Yeah.
So it's just, yeah, better to I'm finding it anyways for myself to front load them like that, and then you're always working on your weaknesses.
Yeah.
But you get them done, and it's like, 'cause if you don't work on those weaknesses, you're gonna end up like me with some lower back injuries or all kinds of shit.
Yeah.
So
So let's leave it there.
yep,
Do your warm-ups properly, front load accessories. Uh, you know, if you're looking for some badass equipment and you want to buy from within Canada and you want to deal with a real person who's sourcing quality materials and putting out quality implements, then you got to go to northernwarriorstrong.ca or check them out on Instagram, Northern Warrior. Um, Tyler, thanks for coming on. Thanks for talking to me, and thanks for sponsoring New Brunswick's Strongest Man and Woman.
you're very welcome. Thanks for having me. Happy to do it, man. I'm looking forward to seeing how the contest goes.
Right on.
I'm pretty excited about those axle deadlift for reps, man.
Right on. Thank you very much.
Yeah, take care, buddy.